Hey, I'm Hunt, and this is Hunt on LSU, your channel for LSU Fighting Tiger football talk. Enjoy the video. We want you to leave a comment below, hit that like button, and subscribe right below the video. Enjoy. ESPN.com had a story out today about the 2025 NFL Draft. Never too early to talk about the 2025 NFL Draft, is it? They had two of their analysts put together a top 5 list at every single position. It was Matt Miller and Jordan Reed. And they went through it. All these guys are draft eligible, and they kind of gave their top 5 at every position. A lot of them were similar, but sometimes there were just some differences in the order. At quarterback, you've got Carson back at the top spot for both. You've got Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers at 2 and 3. Riley Leonard's in there. Jackson Dart's in there. You've also got Connor Wigman in Matt Miller's top 5. And they did that for every single position. And I wanted to look through and kind of see where they had some LSU players. And it was the same cast of characters that you would well imagine they would have. It starts at offensive tackle with LSU in this coming draft. And Miller has Will Campbell as the second best offensive tackle. Reed has him as the third best offensive tackle. Both of them have Kelvin Banks at Texas as the best tackle in this draft. Interestingly enough, Reed had Emery Jones, his second best offensive tackle, ahead of Will Campbell. And I love that. Not because I think very little of Will Campbell. I think a ton of Will Campbell. But I'm thrilled that someone has evaluated this tape, far more qualified to do it than I am, and said, yeah, Campbell's awesome on the left, but this guy on the right, he's every bit as good. And while LSU has absolutely churned out elite-level college running backs that have gone to the NFL, they have churned out defensive backs that have gone to the NFL. They have churned out wide receivers that have gone into the NFL. And in fact, there actually have been some quarterbacks in the last few years that they've sent into the NFL. Offensive line has been a spot where it hasn't been quite as prevalent. Yes, you can find your spots where LSU offensive linemen have gone high in the draft or had brilliant NFL careers. Certainly, Alan Faneca and Kevin Maguire are in the Hall of Fame, and that was back in the 90s. And as you progress forward, you've seen Andrew Whitworth have an incredible career that's going to result in him being a Hall of Famer. Leo Collins has had a great career. Lloyd Cushenberry just signed a huge contract. Joe Barksdale had a great career in the NFL. Trey Turner had a great start to his career in the NFL. Like, you can point to your examples. But offensive line has been a spot that LSU may not have always had elite-level NFL talent. Now, I'll take 5 of the guys you had on the 2011 offensive line, and Will Blackwell was an All-American on that unit and never even attempted to play a snap in the regular season in the NFL. Now, I think he's in medicine. But he was a great college player, just not a top 10 NFL draft pick. And potentially, these two guys could be top 10 NFL draft picks. And that is a phenomenal place to start your offense. And we know that the guards are very, very veteran players as well in their 4th and 5th years. And you plug a redshirt freshman center in there and you kind of push off the dock. And we feel great about this. So to encapsulate, these two guys are 2 and 4 in Miller's top 5. They are 2 and 3 in Reed's top 5 draftable tackles in this draft. That is phenomenal for LSU. The next place that I went, and it's actually 2 different positions for one different guy, and that's the conversation that we're going to have basically all of the second half of August, I think. Because when you start with pass rusher, you see an LSU Tiger pop up. And it's Harold Perkins at the 2 spot. Miller's got Harold Perkins as the second best pass rusher in this draft. Reed does not have Harold Perkins in his top 5 pass rushers. We know when Harold Perkins stands on the line of scrimmage and attacks college tackles, really good things tend to happen for LSU. It started really in earnest with that game at Fayetteville his freshman year, even though right before that, Lane Kiffin mentioned him specifically in the massive turnaround in that game against Ole Miss. But all of that early in his freshman season was done off the edge, just creating absolute havoc. And that's why Miller says he's a top 5 edge rusher. Reed doesn't feel that way. But if you just scroll down one more, at linebacker, Reed has Harold Perkins number 1. So it's just a difference of where they see him. Reed says he's a number 1 linebacker. Miller says he's the number 2 pass rusher. this is my opinion. This is Hunt's opinion. I don't think you can label him a pass rusher in the NFL draft. To me, he's got to be a linebacker. In the same way that you wouldn't label Patrick Peterson a kick returner in the NFL draft. Yes, he can do that. It's part of his skill set, but it's not what he needs to spend most of his time doing, right? I've done this segment, and I'll probably do it again in the middle of August, quite frankly. I've gone through the heights and weights of all these elite pass rushers in the NFL. None of them, not one of them, looks like Harold Perkins. I'm not saying Harold Perkins can't rush the passer in the NFL. He can. I know he can. I think Harold Perkins could go out there this fall and rush the passer with a little bit of success in the NFL. He certainly wouldn't be a Pro Bowler, but I think he could adequately acquit himself rushing the passer some in the NFL. But he's too small to play there all the time. He has to back up a level and be comfortable playing there. And he actually made strides doing that last year. I know we all want to take Matt House and just run him out of town as fast as possible, but I don't know that Harold Perkins didn't progress last year. You could say he was misused, and that's perfectly fine. And the most important thing to you as an LSU fan is that he's used properly at LSU. And that's perfectly acceptable, and I don't think you're wrong in that. But I am going to look at this entire picture and go, he does have to do some of these things out in the slot and in the middle of the field off the ball in the NFL. He's too small to line up like Julius Peppers or Cam Jordan and play on the edge. He can't do that. He's too small. He's got to learn to play linebacker, and that's why I'm encouraged that Reed has him as the number one linebacker in this crew. They also have as part of this story the toughest player to rank, and Reed called it Harold Perkins. He said he's an off-ball linebacker or an edge rusher. I don't know. That'll be the question. I have him 6'1", 215, graded as an off-ball linebacker, and see him transitioning best as a weak side player. He bounced back and forth between multiple positions in 2023, but he was still productive with a team-high 13 tackles for loss to go along with 5 sacks. He's expected to play middle linebacker in 2024. Middle linebacker, okay. We're in the era of the spread. Middle linebackers don't exactly all look like Dick Butkus at this point. Greg Penn's going to play in the middle most of the time. Harold Perkins will be on the inside, but he's also going to play out on the edge as well. He's a hybrid player, and it's just something we're going to have to get used to here in his junior season if we're not used to it already. I just hope that he's used a little more properly, a little more advantageously this year with the understanding that he does have to play both places. To this point in the segment, you're not surprised by anything. You know that Will Campbell's awesome. You know that Emery Jones is awesome. You know that Harold Perkins is awesome. And those three guys who all came in together are all going to be stud players this year who will be high draft picks. The one name that I didn't know that I would see on this list, but that I did, and it comes in the player outside of the top 5 to watch, was fascinating. Because in all these positions, quarterback all the way through, they ranked their top 5. And then they did the toughest guy to rank and the guy outside the top 5, which means he's not necessarily right at the top of the list, but give him a look. It's Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback. It says, following in the footsteps of Jaden Daniels won't be easy. Nussmeier saw action in only 6 games last season, and with his lone start coming in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Wisconsin. Nussmeier showed immense potential in that game, completing 31 of 45 for 395 and 3 touchdowns to just 1 interception. We don't know what this year is going to hold for Garrett Nussmeier, and he doesn't look like the prototypical NFL quarterback as of 10 years ago. Not quite that size, but the NFL is transitioning. They're accepting different quarterbacks that move around a little bit and may not be 6'6" with a rocket arm. They don't all have to look exactly like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. They don't all have to look like Ben Roethlisberger or John Elway. In fact, you look around the NFL, and a lot of them don't look like that. But he's got a chance to progress and to become a very draftable player. And if he does that, that means LSU's been great on offense this year, and that's awesome. And if he doesn't, it means he's back next year. Now, Garrett Nussmeier doesn't strike me as a guy whose camp's going to be all over him to go get the money. Doesn't strike me as a guy who's in a rush. In fact, quite the opposite. He's waited his turn. He's not in a rush. His dad's made a great living in football. So it's a win-win if you're sitting here evaluating LSU's quarterback situation from this year to next year. Either Garrett Nussmeier is a star and goes in the NFL draft and becomes another in the line of Burrow to Daniels to Nussmeier. I'm not talking about Heisman trophies, but draftable quarterbacks. Not every team has that all the time. And then you turn to the next guy, whether it's Bryce Underwood or one of the guys you've got on campus or someone in the transfer portal. And if it's not perfect, well, you feel like he's got all the ability in the world, and him to come back for a fifth year to let Bryce Underwood season for a year watching, that's not the worst thing in the world either. I haven't given a lot of thought to Garrett Nussmeier going to the NFL draft next year as we sit here in the summer of 2024. It's certainly possible, but I haven't given that a lot of thought. But as I do give it thought, I go, if he does, that means really good things happened. So it's kind of a win-win if you're sitting here and you're an LSU fan. So you can check that entire story up on ESPN.com, top 5 draftable players at every single position. Incidentally, no other LSU players showed up on the list, but 2 offensive tackles, a guy that can rush the passer, and your quarterback. Pretty good place to start with some really good talent on your roster if you're LSU football. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.